For you, what was
Yeah.
the thing that you struggled with in relationships or dating?
You know, I think I had a habit of staying in relationships that perhaps I knew weren't right for me long term, but I stayed because I was insecure and I was afraid to be on my own, and, you know, really struggled to, my worth was far too tied to whether I had someone in my life. So I, you know, obviously hurt people that way, because you stay in situations where you are inevitably going to end up hurting someone, but you don't feel brave enough to get out.
To end it. Yeah, yeah.
And then,
So
of course, when they do eventually end, you haven't fixed anything about yourself. And so instead of going, now's probably the time that I should work on this instinct I have to immediately go out and find someone new, I immediately went out and tried to find someone new, because I wasn't brave enough at that point in my life to really confront the real work that I needed to do to be okay in my own company, to really like myself.
So would you wait for her to break up with you, or would you just end it at some point?
No, I would typically get to a point of ending it.
Okay.
But like after far longer than you should have.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And you know, probably if I was being honest with myself, there would have been things that I maybe would have said in the first place. This just isn't not that, you know, wonderful people. I've been lucky to have relationships with truly remarkable, lovely people, but you know, I wasn't right for them and they weren't right for me. But I was not brave enough to, you know, to do anything about that. And I think as well, you know, even the part of me at that time that maybe judged, well, they're not right for me because of this and because of this and because of this. Even the things that I decided were not right for me were kind of also signs that I hadn't really accepted myself, because I truly believe in my bones, the more in life you accept yourself and every part of yourself, the more you start to see more people as wonderful, not less. I don't subscribe to this idea that when you do work on yourself, your pool shrinks. Like a lot of people say that, like, oh, I've just done so much self-growth that it's hard to find anyone anymore because no one's done as much self-growth as me. And
or your circle gets so small and they kind of brag about their lack of connection now that they've healed.
Yeah, and I always found that to be really strange, because for me, any work I've done to give myself more compassion and make more space for the what I've seen previously as the hideous, detestable, contemptible parts of myself has always made me make more space for other people. Because I go, oh God, if I can accept these things about me, I better accept them about you too. And I think there was a time in my life where I couldn't make space for those parts of me. So I just like denied them. But of course, when you then see them in other people, you go, yuck, what's that? I don't want to, that's not for me. But what you're really saying is this part of me isn't for me. And I hadn't figured that out for myself yet. So, you know, even when I say, you know, that person wasn't right for me or whatever, even then there's a kind of like, you know, I'm not saying I would have been ready or that they on a fundamental level would have been the right person for me, but the reasons I might have been telling myself that they were wrong were often a judgment that came from me still judging myself in really nasty ways that I hadn't figured out yet. So it makes for a bad combination when you're judging people too harshly and deciding reasons not to be with them based on those judgments. And at the same time, you're too afraid to be alone and do the work to accept yourself, because that will have you just jumping from one relationship to another, to another, to another. It's a bad cycle.
Sorry to interrupt, but Matthew, you were coaching in your 20s as well, like at the same time
I
while
was
dating?
making YouTube videos since 19.
Oh, wow. Okay.
19.
17 years.
Did that aid your dating experience, or just kind of, did you manage to compartmentalize like the
No, I think it was probably negative.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a desirable place to be, is it? To be as a career making videos every week, helping other people, but while you're already feeling shame for things you haven't figured out,
but you're teaching others,
and you don't feel you can be vulnerable about the things you're still working on. I don't think everyone who helps other people needs to have every single thing figured out. But if you haven't given yourself space to be honest about the things you haven't figured out, then you're in trouble, because you're having to live this very private world of shame over here, trying to figure things out in private, which makes it hard, because when you figure things out in private all the time, you don't get support.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think over time, one of my favorite things about my relationship with people in general, whether it's my audience or the audience watching this, is that very honest relationship of I can truly be myself. And it doesn't take away from the things that I know, but it adds color and complexity. And it certainly takes me off of any kind of pedestal, which these days I'm all too happy to be taken off of. It's one of the best things about it. But there was a time where in the way I was in my public life mirrored the way I was in my private life, which was that if I were to share with people some of the issues that I struggle with, my audience, the people that know me, won't love me anymore, or they won't want to listen to me anymore, or they won't be connected to me anymore. But that was the same struggle that I didn't know I was having at the time, but was in my private life, which is if I speak this insecurity to the person that I'm with, if I truly get vulnerable about that and I stop playing the hero in the relationship or in the dating process, then this person will very quickly go off me. And they won't be able to hold space for Matthew, the complicated person who is sometimes heroic and also is sometimes kind of pathetic. Like they won't be able to make space for those two things. They'll just see me as pathetic.